Love isn't always simple, and passion often comes at a price. Welcome to Intrigue Romance, where secrets, betrayal, and forbidden desires collide. Tonight, we take you into a story you won't forget, where love is never what it seems. When my mom told me she was remarrying, I was cautiously optimistic. At 26, I had already moved out and was living on my own, but the idea of her finding happiness again after years of being alone made me happy. That's how I met Ethan, my new stepbrother. Ethan was 28, and at first glance, he was everything you'd expect from the perfect older sibling. He had an easy charm, a disarming smile, and the ability to make people feel at ease around him. My mom raved about how lucky she was to have married into such a wonderful family, and my stepdad seemed equally proud of Ethan. In the beginning, I genuinely liked him. He made an effort to connect with me, calling occasionally to check in, offering to help me move furniture or fix things around my apartment, and even inviting me to hang out with his group of friends. I thought I had gained an older brother, someone who would have my back in this new, blended family dynamic. But things started to shift in subtle ways. It began with small, seemingly innocent moments. Ethan was charming, yes, but there was something about his humor that sometimes felt off. He'd make jokes at my expense, little digs about my work as a freelance graphic designer or my single status. Still living the starving artist dream, how Claire, he'd say with a grin. It was lighthearted enough that I laughed it off, but it left a lingering unease. One weekend, while visiting my mom and stepdad, I left my laptop on the kitchen counter. When I returned, Ethan was standing there, scrolling through a folder of my work files. "You're really talented," he said casually, but I couldn't shake the discomfort of him invading my personal space without asking. I dismissed it as him being overly curious, but the unease grew when I started hearing about myself in places I shouldn't. My friends began mentioning things I had only shared in passing with Ethan, small, private details about my life that I hadn't shared with anyone else. Then, at a family gathering, one of Ethan's friends, a guy I barely knew, brought up something painfully personal, my recent breakup. "Ethan told me about your ex," he said with a sympathetic smile. "That guy sounds like a real jerk." My stomach twisted. I hadn't even told my mom the full story, let alone Ethan.
How did he know so much about it?
I started to pay closer attention. Ethan had this way of turning conversations around, asking probing questions that seemed harmless, but were designed to extract information. He'd casually scroll through my phone if I left it unlocked, claiming he was just checking the time or answering a call for me. Things reached a breaking point when I noticed someone had been logging into my social media accounts. Posts I hadn't written and messages I hadn't sent were appearing in my chats. At first, I thought I'd been hacked, but the culprit was closer to home than I'd imagined. One night, while at a bar with friends, one of them pulled me aside and said, "Claire, I don't know how to say this, but Ethan's been talking about you. A lot." She showed me screenshots of texts between Ethan and mutual acquaintances, where he'd been mocking my work, my personal life, and even fabricating stories about me. The realization hit me like a truck. This wasn't just harmless teasing. Ethan was deliberately undermining me, spreading lies, and sharing private details I'd trusted him with. The next weekend, I drove to my mom's house, determined to confront Ethan. My hands were shaking as I laid out everything I had discovered. At first, he denied it, laughing off my accusations as paranoia. "Come on, Claire," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You're overreacting. It's just a bit of fun." But when I showed him the screenshots, his smirk faltered. My mom and stepdad, who had been listening quietly, were horrified. My mom's face crumpled as she whispered, "Ethan, is this true?" Cornered, Ethan tried to justify his actions.
"It was just jokes," he said.
"I didn't mean to hurt anyone." But the damage was done. Ethan was forced to apologize, but his words felt hollow. My stepdad was furious and insisted that Ethan attend therapy. My mom was devastated, torn between protecting me and trying to salvage her relationship with her stepson. For me, the process of healing was slow. I had to rebuild trust, not just in others but in myself. I reconnected with friends, explained the situation, and focused on setting boundaries. Ethan and I still see each other occasionally at family events, but things will never be the same. I've made it clear that he's no longer welcome in my personal space. Respect isn't optional, and trust, once broken, takes time to mend, if it ever can. Looking back, this experience taught me a valuable lesson. Even those who seem closest to us can sometimes let us down in the most unexpected ways. But it's how we respond to betrayal that defines us. Life is messy and full of challenges, but I refuse to let Ethan's actions define me. Instead, I use the experience to grow stronger, set boundaries, and reclaim my sense of self. And now, when I think about Ethan's salty lies, I no longer feel anger or sadness. I feel empowered.